10,000 people are taking a probiotic capsule right now. And according to a landmark study published in Cell, for most of them, those bacteria are passing straight through, leaving their gut microbiome essentially unchanged. This is not a fringe claim. It is one of the most rigorously documented findings in modern microbiome science. And it fundamentally changes the conversation about what gut health interventions actually work. The premise of probiotic supplements is simple. Ingest large quantities of beneficial bacterial strains, typically Lactobacillus and Bifidobacterium species. And those bacteria will colonize your gut and improve your health. It's a reasonable hypothesis. The problem is that your gut already has a hypothesis, and it's very strongly held. Your colon is home to somewhere between 38 and 100 trillion microorganisms. They have established territories, ecological niches, chemical signaling networks, and competitive exclusion mechanisms that have been refined over your entire lifetime. A capsule of 10 billion CFU arriving in this ecosystem is not a reinforcement. It is an invasion that the resident community is extremely well equipped to repel. This phenomenon is called colonization resistance. It is one of the most well-documented features of the gut microbiome. Research published in Nutrients, PMC 8625349, and extensively reviewed in subsequent literature shows that the established microbiome actively prevents new bacterial strains from taking up permanent residence, even beneficial ones, even in high doses, even over extended periods of supplementation. The 2018 Cell paper by Elinav and colleagues at the Weizmann Institute of Science is the definitive study on this question. They used post-antibiotic gut microbiome disruption, the scenario where probiotic colonization should theoretically be easiest since colonization resistance is temporarily reduced, and found something remarkable. Participants who took standard commercial probiotic supplements after antibiotics showed delayed microbiome recovery compared to those who took nothing and let their microbiome reconstitute naturally. The probiotics occupied ecological niches and prevented the native community from reassembling. Even under ideal conditions, with the resident competition removed, commercial probiotics performed worse than doing nothing. There is a separate survival problem. The bacterial strains in most commercial supplements have been selected for manufacturing stability, their ability to survive encapsulation, storage, shelf life, and transport, not for their ability to survive gastric acid, bile salts, and the highly competitive environment of the human colon. Research in microorganisms has documented that up to 90% of CFU in some commercial products do not survive transit to the large intestine in viable form. You are often purchasing very expensive bacterial corpses. This is not true of all products. Seeds DS01 is among the very few supplements with published, peer-reviewed strain-level documentation of viability, transit survival, and clinical outcomes. Seed.com via Cultured Roots channel. If you're going to take a supplement, that's the level of documentation you should require. But here is what the evidence clearly supports as more effective than any supplement. Fermented food. The Wastic et al.'s 2021 Cell study, PMID 342560, was a randomized controlled trial comparing a high-fermented food diet against a high-fiber diet. Fermented food consumption, kimchi, kefir, kombucha, yogurt, fermented vegetables, produced measurable increases in microbiome diversity and decreases in 19 inflammatory proteins, including CXCL10 and IL-12P70. No supplement in any clinical trial has produced comparable systemic effects. Why? Because fermented foods don't attempt to colonize your gut with a handful of selected strains. They feed your existing microbial community. The metabolites from live culture fermented foods, short-chain fatty acids, bacteriocins, bioactive peptides, interact with your native microbiome and gut epithelium in ways that support the community already there, rather than attempting to replace it. Frontiers in Nutrition. 2025. PMC 11747498 reviewed the mechanistic literature and concluded that dietary fermented foods consistently outperform probiotic supplements across the key markers of gut health: diversity, barrier function, and inflammatory regulation. If you want to start fermenting at home, Cultures for Health has starter kits for kimchi, kefir, kombucha, and sourdough. culturesforhealth.com. Ref. Cultured roots. For organic ingredients, Mountain Rose Herbs, mountainroseherbs.com. Roch. Rehab. Cultured roots. The $60 billion supplement industry is built on a biologically plausible idea that has not survived rigorous clinical testing. The intervention that consistently works, fermented food, has been practiced for 10,000 years across every human culture on Earth and costs a fraction of any capsule. Your ancestors didn't take probiotics. They ate them. Subscribe for more fermentation science without the marketing. New video every week.